The following program contains the opinions of the host, guests, and call-in participants. These do not necessarily represent the views of this show's distributors or sponsors. This program may contain obscene, profane, or otherwise objectionable language. Viewer discretion is advised. Howdy ho, everybody. Coming to you cordless from Minneapolis, Minnesota. It's Thursday night, June 26, 2025. I am Jim Peters, and welcome to another edition of Jim Peters at Night. This is episode number 245, if you're keeping score at home, and I don't know why you wouldn't. You know, you got a little bingo card or something. I suppose I should have some printed out. What the heck? Well, our guest tonight is going to be, or supposed to be, L.A. Marzulli, UFO expert and paranormal expert extraordinaire. He has not called in yet, so hopefully he will do that soon. In the meantime, if you want to talk to me, numbers on the bottom of the screen, we're live. And you know, I was just thinking about that. If you're watching this on demand, for me to say we're live, that's going to screw you up. Because we're not live for you. But the thing is, if you're watching this on like Rumble, YouTube, or any of the other places we're on, and it's like 9:03 Eastern time. All right, we got a call, and I think that's all right. Hold on.
Hi, it's L.A. Marzulli.
Hello, L.A.
Hi, Jim. How are you?
Hey, pretty good. Yourself? Did you have a problem calling in with the camera? Calling with the camera?
Yeah, I did. I was trying to get in, and I had the wrong number, and then I left a text, and I left a message. So anyway, we're here, and it's good.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, we normally do this with video, but that's fine. We can do this. I like talking to you.
Oh, I can go video. Oh, I can do video.
Did Kimberly send you the video link?
No, I do not have anything. That's what I've been looking for.
Oh, okay. Well, she didn't. I tell you what. Let's just do this then. We're on. The show's running. We're live. So, yeah, you're L.A. Marzulli. Hey, so
Jim Peters.
yeah. So do people call you Len?
No, they never do. I go by L.A.
Okay, you go by L.A. All right, and I won't bother to ask you what your real name is, because I assume you probably don't want people to know, or I don't know.
Exactly.
Hey, well, you've been doing this like forever, you know, and you've got a dozen books out, and I think a dozen documentaries too, if I'm right. Is that the current count?
Yeah, there are 14 books and 30 documentaries, 30 films.
Did you say 30? 30? There's 30 of them?
It's actually 30. Yeah, it's actually 34. But there's 30 full-length documentaries.
My God, you're busy. Seriously.
Yes, I'm a busy man.
How do you find time to do it?
It's I would say that there's an anointing on my life on some level. The Lord has directed my steps, given me the energy, the wherewithal, the fortitude, the stamina, the vision to do it, and then He provides everything that we need to get things done. We just came out with our 31st film. It's on the Shroud of Turin. Shroud of Turin, Holy Fire. I was on Coast to Coast last night with George Norris.
Yeah, I know that.
Talking about it.
So I get it.
So we just released it.
LA, I get a sloppy seconds. That's what I get. But that's okay.
It's an honor to be here, Jim.
I appreciate it. No, it's an honor to have you on. I've actually been trying to book you for some time, and it was just fortuitous that Kimberly said she knew you, so that was kind of cool. So, hey, let me ask you. So, when were you aware of your calling? At what point?
Well, let me just give you a background. I was raised Catholic. Okay, at 13 years old, I left the Catholic Church. The Beatles were out. It's 1963. The British invasion, the whole deal, and I become a student of the New Age, and I am immersed in all things New Age, Eastern mysticism until 30. I was with the guru from 20 to 23, 24. My third eye was open. I was in the ashram. I meditated. I had spirit guides. I was completely immersed in all things New Age, all things occult.
Well, LA, what was your attraction to all that? Do you know?
Well, there was nothing I was on the East Coast, and there was nothing. What the trigger for me, and I've written about this, was when my girlfriend was killed in a hit and run automobile accident. I was 18, she was 16. And that was the wake up call. That was the jolt. That was the, like, what's the purpose? What am I doing here? How can death be so final? Where are we? If there's a God, who is he? And it set me on the quest. It would be until 30, looking under every rock, every nook and cranny, and being involved in the New Age, and looking at Eastern mysticism to try to find an answer. And at 30, I know this might sound trite, but it's not. I asked Jesus into my heart, and nothing happened. I said a little prayer. I was reading a book called The Cult Explosion by David Hunt. And at the end, there's a little book, a little prayer, and I said it. Nothing happened. A month later, all hell broke loose as I was being dragged out of the kingdom of darkness, set free from the kingdom of darkness into his kingdom. I became a worship leader. I was a worship leader for 25 years. And all I wanted to do was create and compose Christian music. I've written full-length orchestral oratorios for orchestra and choir. I'm a classically trained musician. And my Lord said, yeah, I know this is what you want to do, but that's not what I created you for.
Yeah.
And then he started changing what became 14 books and 31 films later. And here we are.
You talk about the 1 month.
It's all his fault.
You're talking about the 1 month gap between you taking that little prayer and everything kind of opening up. Have you noticed? You've been at this game a long time. Have you noticed that it doesn't seem like I have somewhat been under, and a lot of other people have noticed the same thing, and physicists are starting to talk about this too. That it's not so much that time doesn't exist, but kind of that everything's happening at once. Are you familiar with this concept, or it personally, or scientifically, or?
Well, Jesus, and look, and some of you people out there who are listening, if you think you know him but you don't know him, then you don't know him. That's the first thing. So if you think you know Jesus but you don't know him personally, then you don't know him. That's not the first thing. If you've never read the guidebook of the supernatural, then you've never read the guidebook of the supernatural. I'm talking about the Bible. So you have no idea what's in its pages, because it's like Chuck Missler used to call it, an integrated message system. And that's precisely what it is. It's an integrated message system, and it's very complex, and it takes time to plumb its depths. There are scriptures which talk about the time which we are living in. I would call it the last of the last days. And everything is firing on all 8 cylinders. I mean, everything. Jesus warns us to be like the days of Noah. So when he says that 2,000 years ago, everybody knows exactly what he's talking about. He's talking about fallen angels mixing their seed with the human women and creating a hybrid known as the Nephilim. Now, how do I know that? Well, because Josephus, who's a first century historian, tells us that the bones of the Nephilim were openly on display in Jerusalem at the time of his writing. And they had countenances and vestiges so different from ordinary men that everybody knows when Jesus talks about, be like the days of Noah when I return. First of all, people go, return from where? You're here. So he's talking way into the future, which is now. And it goes back to the Genesis 3:15 narrative, the mixing of the seed, which is exactly where we are. And this is the 3-hour conversation, and we have an hour. It's very complex, but Jesus warns us, be like the days of Noah. Don't be deceived. When you see wars and rumors of war, famines, pestilence, earthquakes in diverse places, troublesome times, know the time that you're living in. This is where we are. And we are living in an unprecedented hour. And the centerpiece for all this is the nation of Israel. Amos 9:14 and 15 states, I will bring back the captives of my people Israel. They will build the waste cities and inhabit them. They will plant vineyards and drink the wine from them. They will also plant gardens and eat the fruit from them. I will plant them in their land, and never again will they be plucked up out of the land I have given them, says the Lord your God. So what do you do with that? You know, all the anti-Semites and all the people yelling and screaming, jumping up and down, telling us that these aren't the real Jews and all this other nonsense. Excuse me, these are the real Jews. And what most people don't understand, there's always been a Jewish presence in the Middle East for the last 2,000 years. Always, 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 always. So when at the end of World War I, when the modern nations of Iraq and Syria, Lebanon, Jordan, and Israel were established, Palestine were established, that was out of thin air because the Turks lost the war. This is all part of the Ottoman Empire. And the Brits and the French just came in and created these new nation states, which is what we see now. And they gave the Balfour Declaration of this little tiny, teeny country. And then you get the Holocaust, 6 million perish. And then even after that, those who are trying to get to Palestine are turned away by the British. And then finally, on May 14th, 1948, Israel declares its nationhood, and it's immediately attacked by its Arab nations. And nothing has changed. Nothing has changed. Jerusalem is a cup of trembling to the whole world. So all this is written thousands of years ago. I'm not making it up. I just gave you the shorthand version of some of it. So we are looking at a cosmic regime change, and we are in the midst of it.
Yeah. This is just a comment on my part because I have so many damn questions. It's unbelievable. Did you ever think, or did it ever occur to you? I don't know, maybe there's a prophecy for this, that 80 years after the Second World War, that anti-Semitism would rear its ugly head in such a manner. I just find this unbelievable. And it's kind of become normalized now all of a sudden, too, in some weird way, you know? I mean, I don't understand why everyone's not going nuts over this, but they aren't. Kids are on campus saying, you know, and I was who'd I have on a couple nights ago? The military historian there was about the fact that the funniest thing I've heard in 20 years is queers for Palestine. It's that's like yeah, right.
It's
yeah, you go over there and you try that. I just like,
yeah, good luck.
Yeah, right.
If that's an oxymoron, I don't know what is.
I know, that's right. It's the definition of an oxymoron. That's right. That's correct. That's correct. Anyway, let me get to another question I have regarding the Nephilim. First of all, would you explain to our uneducated wrath of the public here what exactly they were or are?
Okay, in Genesis 3:15, which I want to thank my elder brother Gary Stearman for unpacking this over a decade ago now. Genesis 3:15, you've got Adam and Eve in the garden. That's right, the Adam, the Eve. And something traumatic has happened. They know that they've changed. They're not sure what. They're hiding from the Lord. They're terrified. They realize their nakedness. So you got Adam and Eve over here. You got the dragon, i.e. Satan, who's in the garden too. And then you got the pre-incarnate Christ. And you get this statement from the pre-incarnate Christ, which says this to the dragon: your seed, your offspring, will be at war, at enmity with the seed, the offspring of the woman. The one coming from the woman will crush your head. That means he's going to kill you. You will bruise his heel. It's the whole Bible, Jim. It's not taught in the churches. Most Christians don't know it. Most up-and-coming pastors aren't taught it. And so my people perish for lack of knowledge. If you were going to keep one scripture away from upcoming pastors, that's the one that you keep away. And you bring in liberal professors, liberal theologians to do what's called replacement theology. Oh, the church inherited all the promises of Israel. That's a bunch of hooey. We have not. We're grafted in. The church and Israel are two distinct entities. So the Genesis 3:15 narrative, which talks about the seed war, your offspring will be at war with the offspring of the woman. There it is. 3 chapters later, we get the first incursion where fallen angels come down and procreate with the women. and create a hybrid being known as the Nephilim, part fallen angel, part human woman. They are soulless. They are in a fixed state. They are cannibals. They are the men of renown. And it's like, it's right there. But pastors are not taught this. They are taught what is called the Sethite theory, which says this, that the godly line of Seth married the hoochie mamas of Cain. That's not what's in the text. The sons of God are always.
I don't think hoochie mama's in the Bible. Yeah, okay.
No, hoochie mama's not in the Bible.
No.
But the B'nai Ha-Elohim is, which always refers to the sons of God as the angelic host. So when Jesus is talking about this 2,000 years ago, there is no Sethite theory. It doesn't even exist till a couple of hundred years after he's off the planet. And they did this because if you eliminate that, eliminate understanding the Bible, in my opinion. You really do. And so people just go through this whole thing. And then when you go to a passage, Daniel 2:43, explain this to me. Explain this to me, Jim. Their seed will mingle with the seed of men, but they will not cleave to them. That's in the book of Daniel, chapter 2, verse 43. I'll say it again. Their seed, whose seed, will mingle with the seed of men. Well, it can't be men, so who is it? If you don't understand Genesis 3:15, you're doing the Texas two-step till the cows come home, trying to figure this thing out. Plug Genesis 3:15, you go, oh, okay, I get it. And then the angel gives us what I call a supernatural clue. And he says this, seal up the words in the book, Daniel, until the time of the end. Seal up the words. And then he tells us what the time of the end is going to look like. Men and women will run to and fro over the face of the earth, and knowledge will increase. Well, that doesn't happen until the modern era. And here we are. As we are speaking, men and women are running to and fro over the face of the earth. Knowledge increases exponentially.
Yeah.
We are in the last of the last days. We are. And the Nephilim are walking amongst us.
L.A., do you have any thoughts on the theory that a lot of, when you were talking about the fallen angels that came down and bred with the people,
Mm-hmm.
that a lot of people think that they're the references to extraterrestrials? Do you think that?
No, not at all. I've actually been railing against what your children and your grandchildren have been indoctrinated since Ancient Aliens was first birthed, and I was on the first 2 seasons of Ancient Aliens, and I pushed back against the prevailing narrative. In fact, even George Norrie last night goes, well, do you think Jesus was an extraterrestrial? I'm always being baited like this.
Well, no, I want to tell you, no, I'm not trying to bait you. This is a legitimate question because I don't know.
No, I understand that.
Yeah.
No, I totally get it. And I'm trying to answer it in a legitimate way. So, in the sense of the word, Jesus does not originate on this planet. He created the planet because all things were created by him and for him. He before all things, and he holds all things together. So he's fully God and fully man. He's not an extraterrestrial. But by definition, this is not his own either. But he's fully God and fully man. And the whole idea of the cross, and when he hangs on the cross, this is why the crowd is jeering. He saved others. Come on down. We know you can do it. This is why Marys are at the bottom of the cross. They're figuring, well, they know who he is. They know he's fully God. They're all waiting for him to come down. The dragon, Satan, he's waiting for him to come down because how can you kill God, right? How can you kill God? No one saw it, Jim. Nobody got it. But that's how he defeated the enemy. He humbled himself and he died. And the body is in the tomb for 3 days, and his spirit and his soul go down to the lower parts of the earth, read Peter, and it's all right there. And he preaches to the fallen angels, which have been imprisoned there since the days of Noah and also afterwards. And he says, you're not getting out. You're not getting out. It's over. Checkmate. It's over. And how do we know this? It's all in the biblical prophetic narrative. It's like right there. So he's fully God. He's fully man. He dies. Body is in the tomb. Soul and spirit go down. 3 days later, the spirit and soul mesh with the body. What do we get? We get the greatest archaeological, historical artifact on the planet, the Shroud of Turin. No one knows how it was done. We have a theory on it, our new film, Holy Shroud, Holy Fire.
Right.
And it's not a painting. It's not a dye. It's not applied by the hand of a man. So what is it? And it wasn't even known. People didn't know what the Shroud of Turin was until Secunda Pia took the first photographs of it in 1898. And all of a sudden, all of it, scourge marks, the wounds, the nail prints, the helmet of thorns, the piercing of the side, it's all there. It's all there encoded in the shroud. And there's a frontal image and a dorsal image, and they are disconnected from each other because the body is like, you know, the shroud covers the front, but he's laying on it with his back.
Right.
And you have two completely different images. Complete different images on that.
Now, I don't think this would blow your documentary to say this. What's your theory?
My theory is in the holy fire. So you say, well, what the heck is the holy fire?
Yeah,
well,
what is that? Right.
When Abraham cuts the covenant with God, they sacrifice the animal, make like a lane or a place where they can walk through. We're going to cut the covenant. And God doesn't do that. He puts Abraham to sleep, and God cuts the covenant by himself. And what passes through is like this torch, this light. When Moses sees the burning bush that does not burn, what's that? Holy fire. When the pillar of cloud, or the pillar of fire, leads the Israelites for 40 years, what is that pillar of fire? What is that pillar of fire? When Pentecost comes, and the Holy Spirit comes into that building, into the upper room, they see what? Tongues of fire over the apostles' head. And so for the last 1,700 years, the Holy Fire has manifested in Jerusalem at the Church of the Holy Sepulchre. And this is why we did the film. So let me just back up. And by the way, you can watch it. It's lamarzulli.com.
Yeah.
It's $4.99. It's less than a cup of coffee, folks.
Right.
Less than
a cup of coffee. Are you going to put it on? Are you going to put it on Amazon or Netflix, LA?
We're trying, but it's really hard to do. But we are trying. But you can go to lamarzulli.com. The link is right there.
Oh, but I have to ask you about this. Almost all your other documentaries are on Prime Video. So you're having a problem putting this one on?
Well, no, nothing's on Prime Video. Nothing is.
Well, I just watched a couple of things of yours this afternoon on Prime Video. Well, virtually the entire Watcher series is on Prime Video. I think maybe they're missing one out of 11.
Okay.
So I guess
is that under UFO? What was
I searched for your name. I searched for your name. I searched for Marzulli and then Watchers. That's what I searched for.
Right.
And yeah.
Okay. Then what you probably saw was UFO TV.
Yes,
they licensed.
That is what I saw. Yeah. That's correct. Right. Yeah.
Yeah. And we're working something out with some of the other films. In fact, I just spoke to Tim a couple of days ago. He's the owner of UFO TV. So where was I? So
you were talking about the holy fire. Yeah.
The shroud.
Yeah.
Yeah. In the gospel accounts, we know that Peter goes in and they see the linen, and there's a folded napkin that's next to the tomb, next to the slab where he lay. And remember, they're going back because they haven't done the Jewish burial. It was Passover and they have to leave. So they come back and they find the linen cloths, which are there, and the napkin. See, what's the napkin? Well, when Jesus is on the cross and he dies, because that's where the piercing in the side comes to make sure he's dead, which is really barbaric when you think about it.
Yeah, so but they are killing people.
Gets his spear. Yeah, I mean, they are experts. They know exactly what they're doing.
Yeah.
And by the way, the scourging is incredibly brutal.
Yeah.
Incredibly brutal.
Oh, hell. LA, I've actually studied this a little bit. I mean, crucifixion is a single most torturous way to kill a person that's ever been devised. It's awful. It's absolutely awful. I don't think people realize how terrible it is.
Yeah.
But so anyway, and the thing is, Jesus was a healthy man. If you're old or sick and you're strung up there, I mean, it's a week of hell. I mean, there's just no way of getting around it. Anyway, just want to interject there. Go ahead.
No, I agree. It absolutely torture. You die from suffocation.
Yeah, right.
Because you can't, you can't lift yourself up anymore. Yeah. I mean, what he experienced when the nails go through the palms and they come out behind the wrist there, that in itself, and the helmet of thorns. I mean, he was in absolute shock.
Yeah.
And remember, the thorns come in, that helmet of thorns are there from when he's scourged from Pilate until he carries the crossbeam till Golgotha. I mean, it is just, it's hellacious. There's no coming back from this.
No,
there's absolutely no coming back from this.
It's torture on the first order, absolutely.
So,
right.
Yeah. So Peter sees the cloth, and we know it's written in there. So we have an artifact. It's called the Sudarium of Oviedo. It has been in Oviedo, Spain, since the 7th century. You can only do this in modernity. You take the Sudarium, you overlay it on the face of the man on the shroud. Jim, there were 120 points of congruency between the Sudarium and the man on the shroud. 120 points. In other words, when they took Jesus down, they wrapped his face with this cloth out of respect from the dead. When they got him to the tomb, they unwrapped his face, folded the cloth, and put it near where the body lay.
Right.
I'm not making this stuff up.
No, I know that.
And none of this is possible. None of this is possible until the modern era.
Yeah.
Because you couldn't do this. How could you get 120 points of congruency, 150 years ago? You couldn't. You could go, well, there's some similarities here, but we don't know what we're looking at. The blood type is the same. It's AB. It's AB. And 120 points of congruency. So the man, and it's not, the shroud is not a painting. There's no ink or dye or anything. It's not been applied by a hand of a man. There's $1 million reward for anyone who can reproduce the shroud. It is the most studied artifact on the planet. So when the holy fire begins to manifest, I think his name is Gregory of Nyssa, writes that Peter saw the holy fire over the slab, over the tomb in Jerusalem. So AD 70 comes, and Titus and the Romans come in. They destroy the temple. They kill 1 million people, and the Jews are off to the nations. Prophecy fulfilled, scattered to the nations.
Right.
130 to 135 AD, the Bar Kokhba revolt happens. Romans come in. They've had it with these pesky Jews. That's it. They kill everybody. They make it a crime under penalty of death for a Jew to set foot in Jerusalem. That's it.
Yeah.
That's it. And to further desecrate the sites, they construct the Temple of Jupiter on the Temple Mount, because that was raised in AD 70. And then they construct the Temple of Venus, get this, over the crucifixion and burial site, the Temple of Venus.
Mm-hmm.
Now go 300 years into the future, and you get Constantine, who becomes emperor and declares the Edict of Toleration. Christians are now out in the open. They can worship freely. So Constantine's mother goes to Jerusalem, makes a pilgrimage. Okay, where was the site? She knows where the Temple Mount is because that's still there. But where's the site of the crucifixion? Where did all this happen? Where was he buried? And the locals know. You know this. Locals always know everything.
Yeah.
And they go, see that temple over there, the Temple of Venus? That's where it is. So they take apart the Temple of Venus, and sure enough, they find Golgotha, the place of the skull, where the earthquake split the rock. It's still there today. And then they also find the tomb. And they construct the Church of the Holy Sepulchre. From that moment on, for the last 1,700 years, the Holy Fire has manifested. There's a book by Haris Skarladakidis, I'm butchering his name. He's a Greek historian, Greek Orthodox historian. And he talks about and went to all these libraries and churches and monasteries all throughout Europe and gathered these eyewitness accounts that were written by people from different centuries, from St. Helen up to the modern era, where people saw the Holy Fire manifest in the Church of the Holy Sepulchre. So it's in our film, we show it. We also show that the fire, when it's first lit, when it first lights the candles, you can pass it underneath your face and it won't burn you for about the first 10 minutes. we show this in the film, and it's very, very interesting. So we're saying that we believe that the image on the shroud, because it's not a burn mark. When you backlight the shroud, it's not there, so it's not a burn mark.
No, I understand this. No,
the burn marks are on the shroud.
I've studied this quite a lot. I mean, this is a really, really intriguing, mysterious document, because the thing is, artifact. You're right. No one can figure out how the image got there. It's been analyzed numerous times. And like you said, no one really figured out what was going on until they did a negative photograph in 1898. But what I'm sure you're probably aware of this too. It's also been discovered now that that's actually a holographic image. It's actually 3-dimensional. I don't know if you were aware of this, but there's scientists who figured that out. You know?
I am.
And so, and this is
I mean, how do you get? Yeah, no, go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, and you're right. This is all way pre 20th century, and we've only been able to figure this out, like holographic images, in the last 50 years. You know, so how did this? It's a completely mysterious artifact. Totally, you're absolutely right. I have this is a very, forgive me, it sounds like a mundane question, but I'm actually curious on the answer.
Mundane questions.
LA. So, do you think that the holy fire is somehow, well, I mean, like I said, this is going to sound kind of stupid, is somehow attached to that specific geographic location at the Church of the Sepulchre?
Yes and no. Yes and no, because what happens at the Church of the Holy Sepulchre is the greatest event in all of history. And it got to the point where, you know, the lamps would light up by themselves. That doesn't happen anymore. But we've got historical records of the lamps that are hanging. All of a sudden, bam, the holy fire shows up, all the lamps go on.
Yeah.
So the Caliph, the Islamic Caliph, sees this and goes, well, we've got to stop this. This is some sort of hoax or trickery or whatever. And so they take all the lamps and they put lead wicks in the lamps, and the lamps light up. They do it 3 different times. Finally, the Caliph goes, I give up. And Muslims convert to Christianity. In fact, Muslims used to come down from Syria and go in to the Church of the Holy Sepulchre to watch the miracle, and then they would convert to Christianity. So it's been going on for a long time, and continues in the modernity. Look, the shroud is evidence of the greatest event in all of mankind's history, the resurrection of the God-man Jesus. It's also a progenitor, if I can use that word, what's going to happen to the believers, to us, when we're transformed in a moment, in a twinkling of an eye. And that will happen because Jesus is living proof of that. When he's in his glorified body, he can walk through a wall, and yet he can eat fish. You know, we know this from when he appears to the disciples in the upper room. We know all the doors are locked. So how does he get there? He pops through the wall. And yet he goes, I'm not a ghost. What do you guys got to eat? I'm really hungry. He sits down and breaks bread with them. And then every time, pretty much after that, they're eating a meal on the road to Emmaus. You know, he's always eating. I just love it. It's just debate. You know, what's the most funnest thing that we do? And that's bad English, but I use that deliberately. What's the most funnest thing human beings do, other than having sex with our wives, is eating. We love to eat. We eat all the time.
That's right. And I'm really fat.
He's always baking bread. Always breaking bread.
You know, so the conventional wisdom, if you want to call it that, relatively speaking, is that the image got imprinted on the shroud when Jesus' soul zapped back into his body. That's basically, in 25 words, what most people kind of think, right?
Correct. The holy fire. Well, we have Isabel Pexic in the film. She's actually in our Watchers series, and she passed away a number of years ago now. So when we interviewed her, she was already in her 80s. And I mean, I'll never forget interviewing her. It was just incredible. But she talks about a singularity where the body is levitated in the tomb, and time and space as we know it stops for a very short, very, very, very short amount of time. And this is where the earthquake happens and the Roman soldiers fall out because, you're looking at eternity showing up. You're looking at the God of the universe,
Yeah.
and it's the most cosmic event on the planet that's ever taken place. And of course, there was a naysayer. Oh, this is DMLA and it's a painting and blah blah blah. Excuse me, sir. It is not a painting. There's no paint on the shroud. And how do you explain the image? And how do you explain that the image is hidden until 1898 when Secunda Pica takes the first photograph? And how do you explain the three-dimensional properties that are on the shroud? And on it goes. And I said, look, do me a favor. Believe what you want to believe. Spend an hour on shroud.com. Spend an hour there, and then we'll talk. Because you've never spent any time, and you have no idea of the rigorous scientific experiments that have been done on the Shroud of Turin, including the disproving of the medieval C14 dating, carbon-14 dating, which was done. They said, the shroud's a medieval forgery. Excuse me, no, it's not. No, it's not. They took one sample from one corner of the shroud, and that's been proven to be re-woven. It was a patch job done in the 15th century after the fire.
Yeah. No, I know that. That's the carbon dating of the shroud is all completely messed up. Doesn't even count. So,
completely messed up.
So,
and there was a 1 million. Jim, listen to this. Jim, let me get this.
Yeah, okay.
There was a $1 million reward donation given to Oxford University by an anonymous donor for proving the shroud was a fake. I'm not making this up.
I'm sure you're not. No, that doesn't, and I'm also, it doesn't surprise me at all that anybody hasn't been able to cash in on it either. So, I'm kind of moving on here, but I'm kind of not. So the bulk of your, at least public research involves UFOs. I mean, I don't say certainly not all of it, but at least like half of it. So do you see any tie between when I'm going to say UFOs here? And today I rewatched part of the very first Watchers film, which was you did a really good job of that, by the way. And it was quite a few years ago.
Thank you.
You're talking about the difference between orbs and hardware. And so right now I'm going to talk about just hardware. So how does hardware, in other words, I'm going to say people from other planets. And by the way, I have to preface this and I have to tell you this, but people watch the show know this. I have like 2 missions here with this program, LA, and one is to absolutely convince people that the extraterrestrials are coming here and you just get used to it. That's all there is to it. There's so much there. Yeah, my personal point of view here is that and I'm a cynic mostly, 95% of all the evidence is bogus, but the 5% that's left is so numerous, it's plainly obvious we're being visited by people from other planets. There's absolutely no doubt about it. And so one of the things that you were talking about is, I'm talking about hardware. How does the hardware of extraterrestrial visitation, does that have any tie to like the Shroud of Turin or Christianity in general or specifically, or do these things go together at all, or are you just investigating them as 2 completely different phenomena?
Well, the answer to that is a very complex one, because I do not believe we are being visited by extraterrestrials.
You don't?
I think, and I believe, and this is where
no.
These are interdimensional entities.
Right.
These are interdimensional entities, not extraterrestrial.
Yeah, okay.
All right. So they can manipulate space. They can manipulate space, time, matter, and energy in ways that defy our physics.
Yeah.
And they do it all the time. They can, they've figured out a way to bend gravity. That's the work of Bob Lazar. So that's why a ship can go from standing still over the water to 50 miles in 2 seconds. That's the eyewitness testimony of Commander David Fravor, which is the first rung on my book, The Ladder of Disclosure. That's the very first whistleblower that we get. 2017, Commander David Fravor on Tucker Carlson. This thing moves, shot away like a bullet out of a gun.
I want to get this straight here. You still think that hardware is involved, though, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay, right.
Absolutely.
So now, and I want to point this out too. the late great Jazz Shaw, the UFO writer, he used to come on the show regularly, and he pointed this out that David Grush in the congressional hearings are actually all the testimony he's given publicly. He has never used the term extraterrestrials, and somebody asked him why, and he said, "Well,
Right, correct.
they're not necessarily from other planets." I just use it as a colloquial cover, basically, a summary. That's all, So but my real thing is that I wanted to ask you about is hardware, because a lot of people think, well, you wouldn't or don't need hardware to travel interdimensionally, but there's it seems to me it's obvious there's some hardware involved here by somebody, right? So, and you think the same thing?
Okay. Yeah, I do. And let's go back to the biblical prophetic narrative. And again, some of your listeners out there, okay, Marzulli, how are you going to get out of this one? So go to Second Kings chapter 6. So the Gehazi and Elisha the prophet and his servant Gehazi are surrounded by the Syrian army. Gehazi goes, "We're dead, we're toast, it's over." So Elisha says, "Lord, open his eyes." And he boots Gehazi out of the tent. Gehazi goes out, and the Lord opens his eyes. And what does he see? Go read it for yourself, folks. Go read it for yourself. I looked up and I saw the chariots of fire over the Syrian army. What is a chariot of fire? Go back a couple of thousand years, even longer. And what have you got in your vernacular to express something that you're seeing? Well, you know that a chariot is a mode of transportation. It's the apex of transportation, 2,500, 3,000 years ago.
Right.
That's it.
It is.
It doesn't get any better than a chariot.
No, it doesn't.
And what do you have that illuminates? Well, you've got the sun, but at night you've got oil lamps and fire.
Right.
That's it. There are no light bulbs. So he's looking up and he's trying to grasp and express what he's seeing, limited vocabulary in his lexicon that he has. I looked up and we saw the chariots, plural, the chariots of fire. What is a chariot of fire? Jim, if you and I were standing next to Gehazi, you and I would look at each other and you go, "Oh my gosh, look at the UFOs."
That's right. That's right. That's exactly right. That's correct. That's what we do. Well,
and here's something else.
Yes.
Let me just throw this in. We have 10 films on the UFO phenomena. LAMarzulli.com. You can watch every film for $4.99. Okay, there are 10 films on the UFO phenomena. So unlike a lot of researchers who, read books, and I read them too, we actually go places, and we were at the Roswell 1947 crash site. We went to the crash site with Chuck Zukowski and Frank Kimbler.
I have to ask you to be a little more specific. LA, there's actually 2 crash sites. There's the original one where
there is.
Right. So which one did you go to?
Right. This is the original one where the skip site.
Right. The skip site. Okay.
Comes down and hits, and then it's the skip site.
Right.
This is the first site. This is the one where Jesse Marcel Sr. wound up.
Okay.
And we show this on film. Jim, we are the only film company on the planet who has ever, to the best of my knowledge, and Chuck Zukowski told me this, we are the only film company who has ever filmed a piece of the debris coming up out of the ground. And we show it in the film.
Well, what do you mean hold it? What do you mean? First of all, I for my own edification, I have to see this film. Which one is it? Which one is it?
It's number 7. Number 7. It's called In the Roswell in the Debris Field.
Okay. All right. Okay. And so what do you mean by it's actually coming out of the ground? What happens?
Well, Frank Kimbler goes, okay, first of all, my business partner and I, Gil Zimmerman, and our sound guy, who's got the same name as you do almost, Jim Peterson, we're out in the debris field and we're praying, Lord, show us, reveal to us what you want to show us. So Frank's there with a metal detector. Hey guys, I got a hit. So we go running over with the cameras, and Frank is digging this thing out of the ground with his metal detector. And sure enough, he finally gets it out of the ground. Now he's sifting the dirt And the next thing you know, it's in my hand, and we washed it with bottled water, and I'm holding it in my hand, and I'm just sitting there with this grin on my face. You've got to be kidding me! It's over 70 years later, and we find a piece of the debris of the metal in the debris field. Here's the rub: we took it to a lab and looked at it under a scanning electron microscope.
Mm-hmm.
It is essentially aluminum, but it's got other properties.
How big is this piece?
It doesn't match any aluminum alloy.
LA, how big is the piece?
Very small. It's about half the size of my little pinky finger's thumbnail.
But still, I don't have to tell you this, LA. That site has been gone over with metal detectors a zillion times. Like, I mean, it's the fact that you found something is absolutely amazing. Absolutely amazing, because nobody finds anything. I mean, go ahead.
I know, and the reason for this is Frank Kimbler knew where to go, and there's a film which we show. There's a clip that came from what's it called? Dang it, Holloman. No, not Holloman. It doesn't matter, but it shows this craft. It's a disc, and it's all lit up. There's that chariot of fire, right?
Yeah.
And it comes up, and then it hits the ground, and when it hits the ground, it shatters into thousands of pieces. Well, that's what happened in Roswell. When this thing came down, it broke apart, and parts shot off like bullets out of a gun, and they buried themselves in the ground.
Right.
And this is why there's still stuff that's out there.
Yeah.
There's still stuff, and again, we've analyzed it. It's an aluminum alloy, but it doesn't match any known aluminum alloy. Doesn't match. So more testing needs to be done.
Right. I mean, that's exactly the scenario that everyone thinks happened, is that this thing skipped on the ground and then actually crashed 50 miles away, but it hit the ground at an incredible speed. I mean, it's actually the whole thing's incredible. And to me, it's just another nail in the coffin about the fact that people don't think this stuff's happening. Yeah. Right. Screw you. I don't have,
it is.
You've been doing this for a long time. I don't have a lot of patience for this anymore. I don't. There's so much evidence, and that's like I said. That's discounting 95% of it. That's crap. Even discounting that, there's so much evidence. It's unbelievable. So I was going to ask you about.
Well, it is, and this is. Let me just.
Okay. Yeah. Go ahead. No. Go ahead. Still there?
No, it's we're coming up on the top of the hour, and I got to get going here.
Yeah, I know. I appreciate this very much. All right, okay. Then you
say to yourself,
yeah. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
No. You go ahead.
Okay. So why the cat and mouse game? You get whistleblowers like Commander David Fravor, Admiral Goelette, and others. David Grush, that come on the record and tell us that the phenomenon is real, burgeoning, and not going away. And yet the cat and mouse game continues. You have the blatant lies by the powers that be. There's nothing to see here but a weather balloon. And yet we were out in the field. Well, what's this unknown metal alloy that we're looking at? What's that doing here?
Right.
And why do you keep lying to us and telling us it was a weather balloon when we've got written documentation, deathbed confessions from people like Walter G. Haupt, who stated that he went into the Hangar 84, which we got into. It's in the film.
Yeah.
It's in the film, in the debris film.
I got to watch
this.
Thank you.
Hangar 84. And that's where the bodies were and the craft. And Walter G. Haupt, deathbed confession, states on the record, after he died, they opened up the letter, and there it was. It was all legal and everything else. And he saw the craft. And they shipped it off to Wright-Patterson.
Yeah.
And this is the problem. All the back engineering. Here's the kicker. So you say, well, why don't they reveal themselves? They will, but they're waiting for the trigger. And the trigger is a nuclear event. Now, this is conjecture. In my book, The Rungs of Disclosure, it's the 17th rung, the last rung on the ladder. And Rungs of Disclosure is an interactive site. So as we get new information, we're up to rung number 21. In other words, we are climbing a ladder till finally we get full disclosure. So in the book, which was published last October, we only had 17 rungs. Now we're up to 21. So here's what I think is going to happen. This is conjecture. You're going to get a nuclear event that goes off. You're going to get a nuke that goes off somewhere on the planet. Because the planet is now completely interconnected via the satellite network and the internet, this will create the greatest climate of fear that mankind has ever experienced collectively.
Yeah.
And that's when they show up. That's when they show up. And when they show up, they will say, hey, we're your progenitors. We created all life on this planet. We seeded you here. We genetically manipulated early man. We started the world's religions. We started the world's civilizations. Now at this juncture, critical juncture in human history, we, your progenitors, ET, are back to usher mankind into a golden age. This is it. And the Bible tells us, not directly, but you got to pick, you got to look for it. There'll be a global one world religion and a global one world government. How do you do that? The scenario I just outlined to you, that's how you do it. And that's where we're headed. And I think it's soon.
That's a fascinating theory. And I was just thinking about the fact that, you know, of course, when the 2 bombs went off in Japan in World War II, no one was expecting it. And there's been, and no bomb has been actually, other than tests, been used since. So you're right. I mean, it always seems to have been that somehow that was a marker for a people. I call them people, people observing from outside of here, that when that was like we crossed a dividing line when that happened. That seemed to be the
correct
scenario. Let's leave it with this, because this kind of wraps up the whole thing. So my friend, I was talking about my late great friend Chaz Shaw. He was connected to the Pentagon. I'm guessing you've heard this, but he was hearing this firsthand, that one of the things that's going on is that there's a great struggle in the U.S. military about telling the populace about this, because there's a lot of people in the Pentagon who think that this whole subject is intrinsically evil. Have you heard that?
Yeah, that's yes, I have.
And what do you think of that?
There's no way for me to vet that. I think that what we're looking at is exactly that. There's this push and pull between certain aspects and people in the government that want it revealed, and other people that don't want it revealed, which is why you get this push and pull with the whistleblowers.
Yeah.
But they never get anywhere, and the government never comes clean.
Right. Yeah, it seems that right.
These are evil. You know, if you want to watch a film series, Steven Spielberg got handed the whole thing, and his I think it's 10 parts. It's called Taken, and he gets it right completely. In my opinion, he gets it completely right. They are creating hybrid beings. That's our 4th film in our film series. Hybrids are walking amongst us.
Right.
There is a breeding program.
Yeah.
Exactly like what we read about in Daniel 2:33, and we've already talked about that. So this is the coming great deception.
Well, you've
coming great deception.
You've referenced John Mack. You've referenced John Mack and David Jacobs in your other work, and they were both convinced of the same thing.
Correct.
And especially Mack, who put his entire career on the line. You know, I mean, he said he started talking to abductees because he wanted to figure out what was wrong with them. And 5 years later, he came to the conclusion there's nothing wrong with them. They're actually being abducted. And it's like, that's pretty much, it almost ruined his life.
Correct.
You know? So, yeah, it's LA, we got to have you back, man. This is
I'd love to, just, you know,
fantastic conversation, you know.
Yeah, I'd love to. There's a lot. Jim, there's a lot to talk about, and we've just scratched the surface.
That's right. We'll put your links to your to Holy Shroud, Holy Fire, and your new book, Runs with Disclosure, on our blog at jimandknight.com, so people can find find them easily. And the next thing, you know, God, you have so much stuff coming out, but the next time you release another product or something, God knows, tell Kimberly or something, and we'll have you on. And maybe we can even do it with a video at this time too. You know, people get bored of looking at me. So
sounds good. We'd love to. I
really appreciate it. Thank you.
I'd love to come back.
Great. You take care of yourself. All right. We'll see you soon.
Jim.
Yeah. Take care.
God bless you, sir.
Yeah.
Yep, you too.
Bye-bye.
Yep. Bye-bye.
That was L.A. Marzulli. He's been at this game a long time. Like I referenced there, UFOs are a big part of the show because I figure it's one of my life's missions to get you people to understand that these people are coming here, and you better get used to it. That's all there's to it. There's I have, like I said to LA, I have little patience anymore for people to say who are skeptic about this, because you want to there's you can name all sorts of evidence that's false, hoaxed, all sorts of stuff. Like I said, 95% of it is bogus. 95 of the pictures you see on the internet, the videos, 95% of it is bogus. Either people are sincerely mistaken and they film something that's bullshit, or they're trying to fool you for money or clickbait or whatever. But even with that, the 5% that's left is so damn huge that there's no doubt in my mind, and I don't think there should be any yours. Now, we'll take your calls. LA was supposed to come on a video, of course. Most of our guests do, but we had a little technical snafu there. So he phoned in. Really appreciate it. Numbers on the bottom of the screen. You can call, and otherwise we do. And I got to figure out what to call this, because, like I put in the show description tonight, we do a little. Basically, part 2 of our show is a little newscast, but it's not a newscast. Basically, I find stuff on the news that I don't think you've ever heard of, and when we discuss it, or I talk about it and tell you my 2 bits. And I don't know if that's a newscast or not. I'm certainly not a journalist. God knows, no one could ever accuse me of that. But there's a lot of people who say they're professional journalists who aren't either, and they make big money. Like this woman, Natasha Bertrand. So she's the woman who started this whole thing about the fact, they did drop the bombs in Israel, but they really didn't damage anything. Oh, fuck you, lady. That's pretty much just as direct as I can get here. She's also the woman who originally floated the story about the fact that Hunter Biden's laptop was Russian disinformation. That's her too. She's only 33 years old. She's how do I put this just delicately? She's a white chick. That's about what oh man, I just like, I understand there's money, there's big money in line now. And the thing is, there's not a lot of downside. And that's the reason people keep doing it. That's the reason people keep committing crime in this country. There's less and less downside to it. Right. So you have an incentive to cheat and not much of an incentive of getting or disincentive of getting caught. So why not? It's like, Christ, Anyway, I got a few things here. I think, it occurred to me. I think I'm going to call it the Gymcast. I think that's what it is. It's a Gymcast. I'm going to talk about, and all the stuff I pull out are stuff that you're not hearing about during the day, or that I don't think you are. It's all the stuff that obscure that made the news. One of them, and this has been in the news the last week, but you probably haven't heard about this. There's a woman, and I can't. Let me actually check. I can't remember what she's a representative of. She's in Congress. Her name is Eleanor Norton, but I forgot to write down what. Oh, yes, she's the non-voting delegate, congressional representative for Washington, D.C. So now Washington, D.C. is not technically a state, so she can't vote, but she's still a member of Congress. So she's 88 years old. Now, I got this wrong. I announced this about a week ago, and I thought she was turning 89 last week. No, she turned 88. So I was wrong about that. My apologies. She's 80. She just turned 88, and she's thinking about running for re-election. Yeah, because she doesn't have anything else to do or something. I don't know. Now her staff, apparently, it appears they're trying to talk her out of this. And people who work with her say she's not exactly on the ball lately. So, and apparently she once was. She was once a fairly well-respected member of Congress. But they're saying the last couple of years, it's been kind of slipping. She joins Dianne Feinstein, and and what's with Chuck Grassley? He's 93. I hate to use this term because it's been used the last year about Biden. He truly is sharp as a tack. Now, I still don't think a 93-year-old guy should be in Congress. I don't. It's like, I don't care how smart you are, how well you're doing. I think, at that point, I think it's time for you to go off and do something else, but yeah, he's actually doing terrific, but she's 88 and she's not really doing, and my guess is you haven't heard about this, have you? Well, we don't know, not a lot of people live in Washington, D.C., and like I said, she's a non-voting member. So she doesn't actually get to vote, but she's on committees. And matter of fact, she actually was a ranking member of one committee at some time, if I'm right. So yeah. Now in science news, and I love the science news, and this kind of gets back to what LA was talking about there. I think and I got to check this too. I forgot. I think he's Polish. There's a Polish physicist. He has kind of an unpronounceable name. So it's Gunther Klekchaka, something like that. Man, I'm going to put a link to this on our blog too. He has come up with a theory or a discovery, you want to call it. Not really. It's a theory because it hasn't been that tested yet. But about the fact that, there's 3 dimensions plus time. We have length, width, and height. And that gets to the old joke by Roseanne Barr, one of the best jokes I've ever heard, that only a man could come up with the concept of 1 inch equals 200 miles. so, so if you're a guy and you're watching this, I know that there's only like 5 women who've ever seen this show ever. So yeah, width, length, and height. That's what you got. And yeah. You take out a ruler and measure yourself, and you can use those 3 dimensions. That's what you could use, and you got time, right? So we live in a supposedly 4-dimensional universe. String theory, subset of physics, says there's 11 dimensions, which is what L.A. Marzulli just now. And also David Grush and other people are alluding to when they talk about an interdimensional species, about the fact that there's 11 dimensions. That would be 11 different floors to a building layered onto our reality. That's what string theory says. Well, Gunther, whatever his name is, I'm going to call him Gunther. He has come up with this theory that there's actually 3 dimensions to time too. And we live in the middle one. He said and it's kind of like quantum theory and quantum mechanics and classical physics. So 1 dimension of time only exists on the atomic level, and then the other 3rd dimension of time exists on a cosmic level. In other words, space, universal. So, and we live in the middle level. But he says this theory, this is actually a pretty big deal for physics. He says this theory basically solves all the problems that anyone has ever postulated about classical physics. And it does, apparently. It really does. It's like it can accurately predict the movement of subatomic particles, all sorts of stuff. It actually basically, and this is going to be tested now over the next couple of years, but this might be a huge breakthrough. So now we would be living in a 6-dimensional universe, us humans. There's 3 dimensions in space, and there's 3 dimensions in time, whereas before it was just 4. And that's actually a big deal. That is. You may not think so, but it is. And finally, I want to talk about January 2006, because David Friedman at Above the Norm News wrote about this. And this has been a UFO story that's been it's been known for the last 20 years. Like I said, it was January 2006, but it never got the attention it deserves because it is easily one of the most well documented and well witnessed UFO encounters that's ever happened. And he says it's amazing the fact it didn't get more attention. Now, it did get attention. I mean, I was aware of this. If you watch Unsolved Mysteries or whatever the hell that crap is, they ran stories on this stuff, but it still never got, because the thing is, here's the deal. So what happened was in southwestern Illinois, where Illinois meets Missouri, there's a bunch of small towns down there. And in January of 2006, in the middle of the night, somebody calls into, I can't remember what town started it, but calls into to the police dispatch in this town and says, "There's a giant triangular UFO over my house." And the woman, they don't get calls like that every day, but she said this woman on the phone was really quite frantic. So she sent a police officer, she dispatched an officer in a car out to see what was going on. And he saw it. And she was absolutely right. He's looking at this and he's describing it vividly over the dispatch radio. And it's basically just hovering, and then very suddenly, after about 4 or 5 minutes, it takes off, and he realizes it's traveling toward the next town, which I'm sorry, forgive me, I should have written this stuff down. I didn't. I can't remember the names of the towns, but anyway, all these little towns in southwestern Illinois are all kind of networked together. They're police departments. So he contacted the next town's dispatch and told them what was coming their way. And all the police officers that saw this really did a fantastic job documenting not just the way it looked. One got a photo, which still exists, and also just the most of them were former military guys, so they actually understood coordinates and direction, and so they actually documented where it went, what the coordinates were, that sort of stuff. And so he calls the next town and tells them this is coming, and they send a police officer out and basically meet it. And they see the same thing, big triangular object with 4 lights on it, one red, one in the center. And this UFO is followed by police departments over 5 different cities, all the way across southwestern Illinois until it gets basically to the Missouri border, and then it just takes off out into space. But the thing is, so 5 or 6 police officers saw it. One got a photo, and at least 50 people called into the police dispatch places in these various little towns and reported seeing it too. And all the descriptions were the same, all of them. They all saw. It's obvious they all saw the same thing. So you have at least 55 or so witnesses, if not, and no one knows how many people didn't call in. So you have at least 55 witnesses that saw this UFO, and 6 of them were professional police officers, and they documented the whole thing very, very intently. They wrote it down, they drew pictures. Like I said, one guy got a photo. The photo still exists. The photo's been analyzed. It's not a fake. It was also on a Polaroid. It's very hard to fake Polaroids. I don't know if you know that. But anyway, Friedman wrote an article about this in Above the Norm News today. And he's right. This actually should get more attention. This is right up there. It's right up there with the Phoenix Lights, basically, but not as many people saw it. But at any rate, just more proof on the pile. That's the way I look at it. Yeah, folks, I'm going to reiterate what I said was talking with L.A. Marzulli for part 1, and that is, we're being visited by people from other places. A lot of people are saying they're not from other planets. I actually think both myself. I think they're both from other planets and other dimensions. I think there's a slew of these people coming here. I also think that they're their development is anywhere from 200 to 2 million years ahead of us. So, and of course, a lot of this is conjecture, but I know one single thing for an absolute certain fact, that the U.S. government or the military, let's say the military, not the government, has retrieved at least 6 and probably 9 or more of these crashed spacecraft that LA was alluding to. Now, Hal Puthoff was just on Joe Rogan like a month ago or something like that. And I'm actually surprised he actually said this. He said the actual number is 10. He said he's aware of 10 crashed spacecraft that the military has. And he would know because as a physicist, he's been working with the U.S. military forever. As a matter of fact, I'm surprised and he talks about this constantly. He's under enormous security oaths. So I'm even surprised he was even able to give out that number. These people, they have to constantly check themselves when they do these interviews because there's a whole bunch of stuff they can't talk about. So, and Lou Elizondo, he's in the same category. There's a whole bunch of stuff he can't talk about, and yet he does interviews, and he will coach his knowledge either as questions or as his, like, quote unquote my own opinion or that sort of thing. He can kind of rephrase it. But at any rate, if you want to read an interesting book, read his book Eminent that came out in, what was it, September of last year. I read it. I mean, he says, yeah, we have these things and we are not alone. And folks, we're not alone. Now, what do we got coming up next week? Let me tell you. Monday, we got our all-star panel, the return of the all-star panel. It's going to be Tim Conaway, Larry Newman, Jennifer Oliver O'Connell. We haven't done this now for several months because I killed it because I'm stupid. And they're going to come on. Where we've always gotten a really good viewership and people like this. And these people, I have to say, I stumbled into this panel basically, but the chemistry is really good, and people always enjoy it. That's Monday. Tuesday, Dr. Carol Lieberman. She's a forensic psychiatrist. She's a professional expert witness at, like, murder trials and violent trials. She's also she hosts the Terrorist Therapist podcast. So we're going to be talking to her. But I find that really fascinating because the whole whodunit thing. We don't talk about trials here very much because I got to admit, most of the Karen Reed thing I thought was kind of fascinating. I talked about it only at the end because the only real fascinating thing to me was with the verdict, which I predicted was going to be not guilty because they simply didn't have enough evidence to convict her. I don't even know why they even tried. That's the really crazy part. The only thing she was found guilty of is drunk driving. And yeah, she was drunk. She was drunk on her ass. I don't think she knows what happened there. I don't think she knows or remembers, I mean, on the one hand, you could say, yeah, a drunk chick who's mad at her boyfriend, he gets out of the car, it's like, well, I'll show him. But and she thinks, well, it's just in my mind, I didn't do it, or she's too drunk to remember, or he just slips on the ice and just ends up cracking his head. I mean, who knows? That's the thing. Nobody really knows what happened. This whole thing about floating this conspiracy theory about other police officers doing this, that's just crap. But on the other hand, they didn't have enough evidence to convict her. They didn't. So the jury did the right thing, I thought, and the same now. It'd be interesting with Sean Combs what's going to happen here because I spent the majority of my career in the music business, and I always knew something weird was going on there because he did not make enough money from music to live that lifestyle. I know that. Now you could say, well, he was really good at investment and all that sort of stuff. I don't know. It's just the whole thing smelled bad to me. I don't think that about Jay-Z. Jay-Z actually did make that much money. I know that. But Sean Combs, I don't know. It's like I always thought, no, something's wrong here. He shouldn't have the money to live this way. So it'll be interesting. I don't know. I haven't followed it at all. But but other than my professional film familiarity with the situation, other than that, so I'm not. But I'm kind of interested. The whodunit thing fascinates me because it's like a big puzzle. So anyway, that's what Dr. Carol Lieberman does. So we're going to have fun talking to her. Monday, July 7th. Oh, we're taking off Wednesday and Thursday next week, the 2nd and the 3rd. And then, of course, July 4th is on the 4th. Monday, the 7th, Jeff Dornick, he's the CEO of Pickaxe, which is a new Twitter ex-competitor. It's another social network. It just opened like a month ago. And we're going to be talking about AI. And then on the 9th, that's our 250th show, unless, I screw up or something. That's the plan right now. It looks like Tim Conaway is going to be our guest. He's been around forever, old friend of the show. So that's kind of a good thing for him to be on there for that. And our 2-year anniversary is going to be Thursday, July 31st. I think I have a guest lined up for that. Well, hell, what am I talking about? I got guests lined up everywhere. We booked the entire month of July already, and here we are when it's not even the last week of June. And so, yeah, it's good. That's a good thing. I want to thank you folks for watching. I really appreciate it. I want to thank Elliot Marzulli for coming on. It's too bad we didn't get him on video, but we'll get him on next time. I mean, seriously, you heard that guy talk. He's just scratching the surface, and he is, So you may not agree with him. You may not agree with me. I don't care. As we'll just try to keep it entertaining. That's what it is. It's good conversation. That's the way I look at this. So thank you for watching very much. Good night, Uncle Donnie. Good night, Uncle Donnie, wherever you are. And good night to you, wherever you may be. We'll see you on Monday, everybody. Take care.